and life experience. Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I gotta tell you, I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too, but I'm glad we are.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and life experiences come together through conversation, and it feels good.
Wow, your story is so,
Interesting?
Yeah.
When people actually sit down, talk, and listen to one another, they can break down boundaries and connect as human beings. At lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep, you can listen to amazing, life-changing conversations and find simple tools to start a conversation of your own.
I know one thing. This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together by having the courage to start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
O'clock straight up in the afternoon on the East Coast. It is a Thursday edition, middays with you coming at you exclusively on the Riptide Media Network. Sports Radio 1029 FM, The Game. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones, Angel Martinez on the other side of glass, producing the show, keeping us on the air. We got 60 minutes to play with, so we have a jam-packed, busy show, as I mentioned, a lot going on in the world of sports, a little pivot, if you will, in the NBA when it comes to the Los Angeles Lakers. There's a monster report out there that they look like they're going to pivot, and they've got I guess you can say, ace up the sleeve, so to speak, when it comes to their next potential head coach. So we'll dive into that. As always, 727-858-6650, 727-858-6650. Watch the magic of what I do by shutting this door real quick. All right, there we go. So Jonathan Marshall from WMER is going to join me in about 10 or so minutes. NBA Finals tonight, Boston Celtics and Dallas Mavericks. We'll get into the X Factors. We'll get into the predictions, the thoughts, the plays. 2-1, by the way, yesterday around the diamond with my baseball plays. The only loss was Atlanta-Boston. I'll give you those at 45 after. But as always, we are live on this Thursday, and we appreciate everyone keeping us locked in. And yeah, as I mentioned, the interesting pivot that we're kind of dealing with right now, if you are a hoops fan, is potentially what the Los Angeles Lakers are going to do. And right now, it sounds like they are flirting with the idea of no more JJ Redick, but they're kind of flirting with the idea of making a huge, strong move, if you will, for, how about this, Dan Hurley, which a lot of people think is, it's an outside the box move. I mean, you talk about the success that these college coaches have had over the last several years. Do you want to make that move? Do you want to bring in a guy like that? I mean, there's a lot of analysis to go around. There's a lot of ways to kind of break this one down. But I will say this, if you are trying to make a splash and you are not worried about what LeBron James is thinking, then you're probably going to have this man as your next head coach, because that to me would be, I think, kind of a rattle the cages type of move. I think this would also be a move where you look at Hurley and you think all the great fanfare from college, all of a sudden, boom, you bring him into the mix, and then here we go. You've got an opportunity now to bring in a guy that has a proven track record. You have an opportunity to bring in a head coach that, think about this. So you had Coach K spurning the Lakers about 20 years ago for Duke, and it looks like Hurley is in that same boat. It's going to be a massive offer, no doubt, to Dan Hurley. And I mean, listen, it's just, I think going a JJ Redick, going a player that's quickly removed from the game, I think that would be a mistake. You know where I feel, where my thoughts are. I think this pursuit is a great pursuit because, listen, LeBron James got to sign off on this first and foremost. So he was, quote, impressed with the way that Hurley ran the offense. And we saw that UConn was just an absolute friggin' juggernaut, right? We saw they were a juggernaut. And I'm not even going to get into, listen, if they turn around, they try to pluck and draft, Bronny James, the freshman guard out of USC. I don't know. Who knows, right? I mean, maybe they're trying to use that 55th pick and they're trying to sway Hurley. Hey, man, here's something in a package deal, so to speak. I know Reddick, gave a lot of credit to Hurley, and rightfully so. I mean, he is a young guy. He's 51. He's very ambitious. He's driven. He's passionate. We saw what he was able to do in college. We know what his brother was able to do in the pros. We know what his father was able to do for all those years in St. Anthony. So the lineage, right, if you will, when it comes to Hurley, it's right there. I mean, that's an absolute fact. So I think it would be an exceptional hire. And I know a lot of people will maybe raise the flag and debate a little bit. And all right, well, do you really want to go the college route? We've seen college coaches try to go the pro route and it's kind of blown up in their face. And then pro coaches try to go back to the pro college route and it's blown up back in their faces. I'm not necessarily sure that's the case. I think the Lakers have a boatload of issues anyway. Because LeBron's getting up there. The Western Conference, as we kind of take a look at it as presently constructed, we know it's top heavy. And we know that there's a bunch of dogs in that conference. We know there's really good teams. Obviously, the Dallas Mavericks exceeded expectations. OKC, top seed, 57 games. Denver won a championship last year. They still got the Joker. They're going to win 55-plus games. There's other teams on the rise, and even the bad teams in that conference. The Clippers are still a solid team. The Lakers are on the fringe if they make some movement in some parts. San Antonio is a young team that, again, they believe that they're going to have the pieces in place to compete in 2 to 3 years. And in the NBA, it doesn't take 3, 4, 5 years to get it done in the NBA. You can turn around and you can be a 30-win team. You can jump to 45 wins. You can go to 55 wins. You can be a 60-win team. Some teams are kind of stuck in that purgatory back in the day, that 7th and 8th seed, where it would kind of screw with your draft status. But listen, I think it would be a big move. I think it makes a splash. I think Reddick's a mistake. I think Reddick is too early removed from the game. I think he's too close to the players. I think he's too buddy-buddy with LeBron James. There's no way that Hurley's going to do a friggin' podcast and coach the Lakers. Reddick probably has aspirations of continuing doing his media stuff. It is a grind. Think about that. You want to jump to college, to the NBA. You're not coaching young kids now. You're coaching grown men. And I don't know if JJ Redick wants to deal with that. JJ Redick has been critical of players. JJ Redick is a familiar talking head. JJ Redick has a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts, a lot of breakdowns, a lot of analysis, a lot of criticisms. But the fact that he's doing the pod, he gets to move around, travel, do the meet and greets, have fun, has the pod on DraftKings, their network. You're going to take that all away from him as opposed to having the stress of being a head coach in the NBA. I don't know about that one. All right. Just cranking up on a Friday edition of Middays with Q. Appreciate you guys chiming in. 727-858-6665. We'll take a quick time out. We'll crank it up on the other side. Jonathan Marshall, WMUR, covers the Boston Celtics. He will join us after the break. You got the Celtics, you got the Dallas Mavericks. Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Let me know your thoughts. You can always get social with me on social media platforms at RichQ on Q. And as always, don't forget to download the Sports Radio 102.9 FM app. Of course, we are powered by Riptide Media Network. 8 past 12 o'clock hour on the East Coast. It is a Thursday edition of Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass. Jonathan Marshall will join us on the other side. Little NBA talk with him.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, groan-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And, with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have any body to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
That's really funny.
Okay, men. This is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're gonna go out there and be an all-star caregiver. It's up to you. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna go grocery shopping, cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You gotta dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments. Don't you forget about the pharmacy. I know you won't. Because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. This is your time to show the world, your family, and yourself that you're tougher than tough. Now go out there and be the best caregiver this world has ever seen. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick and proud aunt. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing. But not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. 1 in 6. That little girl sitting alone at the playground, she can't play like the other kids. She doesn't have the energy because she's hungry. School lunch will be her only meal today. It breaks my heart that this is the reality in our country, but it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste. This food is then provided to families and children in need. Being a kid should be about using your imagination, learning, and having fun. These children shouldn't have to miss out on simply being a kid because they're hungry. To find out how you can help end childhood hunger in your community, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
All right, 12:12. Welcome back, everyone, to a Thursday edition, Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez on the other side of glass, producing the show, keeping us on the air. And we are powered by our good friends and brought to you by our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clements Bridge Road in Deptford, New Jersey. Memorial Day is in the books, but you guys are still going to go out there and golfing. You got the high school sports summer leagues as well. Give them a buzz 7 days a week. Play It Again Sports. Check them out, New Jersey location, playitagainsports.com. The authentic throwback jerseys are available as well. And I don't know, does he have any? I guess he doesn't have any Dan Hurley throwback jerseys. I don't know. Jonathan Marshall from WMUR covers the Celtics and the NBA. He strikes me as a guy that probably has a Dana Barrows throwback jersey.
I would love to get look, I have a lot of items on my to get list. I would love to get the Dana Barrows number 3 Philly, but I got some cool ones. I got a T-Mac, Toronto, Steve Francis, Houston. I got some gems. Got a Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, all right.
Got some cool ones.
Rodman Pistons, Rodman Bulls, Rodman Spurs.
I got the Rodman Bulls.
Rodman Bulls.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I was never a jersey guy. Do you know that?
I never knew that.
Nope.
Really?
That's true. No. I mean, football jerseys, I have 2.
Wow.
Actually, I have 3 because I was always a Barry Sanders fan.
Right.
But I just wanted it, never wore it. And then the one that I got when I was much younger that my friends will still have fun with me about, I have a Rawlings number 11, Phil Simms.
Wow.
That's in the archives. I take that out when I need it the most.
See, it's more of a collecting thing for me. A cool one that I got not too long ago was a Michael Jordan Birmingham Barons minor league jersey.
There you go. And then I got a Tiki Bear one. I have a Tiki Barber, which, and other than that, no. No, never the jerseys. But be that as it may, always appreciate a couple moments joining me on this edition of Middays with Q. So I guess we'll get to the NBA Finals. I feel as though here are the Lakers, right? Let's make a splash. Game one prior to the NBA Finals, Boston and Dallas, with the news now that they're prepared to make a massive offer to UConn's Dan Hurley. And, you and I talked a little bit about this over the last week or so, why it would be a mistake to bring in a guy like JJ Redick, right? I mean, we kind of agree too close to the game, too close to the players, too, freshly removed from the game. But that being said, when you look at Hurley, I guess the first reaction is usually the most accurate one. I like Hurley. I love what he's done for college. He comes from that pedigree, obviously, with his brother and his father all those years with St. Anthony winning championships. He's no nonsense. I think he's a guy that would come in and, believe it or not, I believe his personality and drive would gel with LeBron, if that makes sense. And he's not going to take any grief from these players. So when you hear Hurley's name being floated around as Lakers' potential head coach in waiting, coaching candidate, what's your initial thoughts?
I love it. It's shocking because the Lakers front office hasn't shown itself to be an organization that's looking toward the future and looking to think outside the box, right? And I've always said, look, let's stop recycling these retread coaches, right? Let's stop settling for the Mike D'Antonis. The usual names that are all brought up, coaches who have had their opportunities and it didn't work out wherever they were for whatever reason. You have a guy in Dan Hurley who has proven to be offensively one of the best minds in basketball, no matter the level. And I think that will translate to the NBA. The question is, as a college coach, how do you handle the locker room? How do you handle the media? It's a different energy. But I think Dan Hurley is intelligent enough to know that he will have to adjust. But with the Lakers at this point, you have to think about the future of your franchise post LeBron. And what this move does for me, it's thinking about that. A coach who has proven to be a guy that can develop young players. For the Lakers, they haven't been able to do that at all. And so for the Lakers franchise for the next decade, I think Darren Hurley would be a great piece to push this franchise forward when it comes to building a culture of winning, having a competent offense, and also developing some young players who can thrive in a system that is proven.
How much of this do you think is LeBron James realizing that a guy like JJ Redick that he's buddies with, that they're on the pod, and he's been known to be critical and overanalyze or critical of players, and still has, the fact that he is, as I mentioned, a couple years removed from the game. Maybe that's not a good thing, but how much of this do you think LeBron had the input of pivot in? Well, here we go. Here's another thing, right? Too. Let's forget about the elephant in the room. I mean, think about this. If LeBron James returns to Los Angeles in free agency, so the possibility that the Lakers now use that 55th pick in this month's NBA draft on Bronny James. So does that maybe make it, I guess, Hurley more of a more appealing, viable candidate? So how much, I guess, in short, how much do you think LeBron James's input has to do with the next hire, the next coach of the Los Angeles Lakers?
We've talked about this all the time, Q. No move is made in an organization in which LeBron is a part of, and LeBron doesn't have at least some type of input, right? And so for LeBron, he was quoted on Twitter, right, praising Coach Hurley's offensive genius, right, for what he did at UConn. And so I do think LeBron is a very smart person, very intelligent when it comes to basketball, especially. He knows what Hurley brings to the basketball floor, right? And so knowing how close JJ and LeBron have been, maybe there's a conversation that's been had, and maybe LeBron's starting to see, maybe both sides are figuring out, hey, maybe this isn't the right time or the right situation for JJ, and for LeBron saying, look, to get this team to where it needs to be, and also for the future of this franchise and for my son possibly, who is the best coach to check all the boxes? And if you're being honest with yourself, Dan Hurley is the better candidate compared to a JJ Redick who hasn't coached, period.
Oh, 100%. And I'm wondering too, when did that be a second round draft pick too?
Yeah.
So who's to say he's still available? Like, if you're putting all your eggs in one, Bronny James basket here, thinking, hey, I mean, there can be a team just out of spite,
right,
that takes this kid.
This is true, but I would think that a team would not waste, you know what I mean? Just waste that draft capital.
Yeah. Well, but then the Lakers would.
the Lakers would for sure if it means we're guaranteed that
Sure.
LeBron is
3
happy
more
to
years.
sign his hair, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so, for the Lakers, honestly, it's about pursuing a sustainable system, right? And they haven't been able to do that with their star and big name chasing. It's failed. It's not working. You look at the teams that are thriving right now, the teams that are in the finals right now, that the last 4 teams that were remaining, they were built through the draft. And yes, you add on some names, you add on some proven vets, right? But at its core, these guys have been drafted in-house and they've been developed. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, right? Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, Naz Reid. Like, these are guys that were built through the draft, whether undrafted or they were drafted, but they were developed. And that's what's sustaining your success. The Thunder, like, it's proven right now in the NBA, like, that big star name chasing is not going to work. The Lakers have to switch it up.
Yeah, it's a fair point. 20 past 12 o'clock hour on the East Coast, a Thursday edition. Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass, producing the show, keeping us on the air. Jonathan Marshall, WMUR, covers the NBA, along with being a sports anchor reporter, also the Boston Celtics. They get set for their quest for their 18th banner this evening against the Dallas Mavericks. Game 1 should have been Sunday night. Okay, fine. I know when people look at this series, a lot of people believe like there is this sentiment that the national audience is rooting for the Dallas Mavericks, right? Because, East Coast, the bias, they're tired of the Celtics. I mean, you know me, I'm a Knicks fan. I can't stand the Celtics. But again, from a betting standpoint, if you look at this team, their win total was 54. It was plus 450 to not only get back to the finals, but win it. That kind of told you the odds makers like the Celtics' chances. I think the reason people are more inclined to talk about Dallas is because the Celtics, and you have to be fair here, you go through the Eastern Conference, no Jimmy Butler with Miami, no Mitchell or Allen with Cleveland, Halliburton banged up with Indiana, although Indiana let some games, they could have won at least one, minimum 2 games in that series as they went out pretty quietly. And then conversely, you have the Dallas Mavericks. Okay, we'll beat the Clippers that won 51 games. We'll beat OKC that won 57 games. We'll beat Minnesota that won 56 games, right? The matchup here, I mean, I look at this series where I think it's very easy to say, we'll talk about the pressure, but the X factor to me in this whole series, I believe, is Porzingis. Even if he can give them 10 to 12 to maybe 15 minutes, 80% on the floor, create a little more spacing on the floor, because there are going to be nights where they need him either down on the low block or at least just kind of garnering the respect of being back out on the floor if Tatum, if Brown, if White, if those players somewhat struggle. And you have a two-way player. He can play both ends of the floor. So would you agree with that, or do you have another name in mind?
No, Porzingis number 1 for the Celtics. You got to have him in this series because Dallas, they feature Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, guys who are threats in that front court, right? And so you need a rim presence because Al Horford, as good as he's played at 38 years of age, right, there's only so much you can expect from him. Luke Cornett, another backup, he's been hurt. We're not sure how he'll be ready to play or not, but Porzingis brings something defensively, but offensively as well. The Celtics playing 5-out offense, right? And so you put out a Porzingis out there to stretch the floor even more. What does that do for a Tatum and a Brown? It opens up more space to drive and attack, right? And so what Porzingis offers on both ends of the floor cannot be overstated. But also for the Celtics, I'm looking at Drew Holiday and Derek White, right? Defensively, we know how great they've been as a backcourt duo, so we know there are going to be times where they have to face up against Kyrie and Luka. Jaylen Brown and Tatum as well will have that responsibility, but offensively, I think these guys can have a huge impact, right? Like if a Drew Holiday or Derek White sees Kyrie on you as a basketball player, you got to say, look, you can't check me.
Yeah.
Same with Luka. And so I think Drew Holiday and Derek White could really tilt this series versus a Dallas Mavericks scenario with, obviously, you know what you're getting from a Luka Doncic and a Kyrie Irving. Can a Derek Jones and PJ Washington be huge again? But for the Celtics, for me, Drew Holiday and Derek White have been proven consistently. Holiday he's been on this stage. He's won a championship, right? And so when you talk about the NBA Finals stage, it is different, right? Was that media day yesterday. The attention that these guys have just in a regular shoot-around practice, you're surrounded by lights and national media and local media. And so people are following you all around this arena. Like, it's a different level of attention and pressure. Yep. And so it's real. That experience is important.
No, 100%. It's a different animal, right? I mean, it's just, and this is where we talk about the NBA is so wide open where they're not playing defense. hey, it's different come NBA Finals time, playoff, right? We're going to ratchet up. We're going to force you into that half court offense. We know about the depth. We know about the talent of the Boston Celtics. We know about, if we want to say, the 1-2 punch of Tatum, Brown, then you throw in White. Let's not forget Holiday as well, a veteran that can put the ball on the floor and give you some minutes off the bench if need be in some points. Is this series a referendum on the careers when it's over with? Is this going to be a series that we look back and say, okay, this made or break? I'm not going to say Brown, but I'm going to put more pressure on Jason Tatum, because I feel as though several years ago it was Tatum or Simmons, who's the transcendent player. And we kind of know the people that lost that friggin' argument. They're still yapping behind the microphone, making no sense. Tatum is a superstar.
Yeah.
But, and you can speak to this, you're in that area. I feel as though he's also an enigma. He's a frustrating player, because what are we going to get? Are we going to get 8 of 35 for 17 points and a couple turnovers? Or are we going to get, 14 of 18 and 10 of 12 from the line, 4 of 5 from beyond the arc for 35 points? So talk a little bit about Tatum and I guess the pressure on him to carry this team to a championship.
Yeah, so the Tatum conversation is interesting, right? Like I understand both sides of it, right? On one hand, before even turning 30, his resume is ridiculous.
Right. But how many rings did he say he was going to have?
They look. That's a whole different conversation.
That didn't help.
The comments like that never age well.
No.
But on the flip side, it can be frustrating to experience Jason Tatum, watching him, right? Being a fan or just covering or just watching as a fan, right? And so with Tatum, I think I've realized, like, sometimes the superstar that we expect certain people to be, they may not just be that. That just may not be what their makeup is. You understand what I'm saying? So you have a Jaylen Brown who is more aggressive. The mindset is totally different from a Jason Tatum, who would rather let the game come to him, not force the issue, right? And so I think the criticism of Jason Tatum, which I've had this criticism, is he settles way too much for the little step back, 3-pointer, fadeaway.
Take the ball to the basket. Put the ball on the floor, take the ball to the basket.
You're 6'10", you can handle it, you're athletic, utilize the gifts that you've been blessed with to dominate, right? And he's shown that in flashes. Jaylen Brown a little more so, right? And so for Jason Tatum, for me, this year is your year. 2 years ago against the Warriors, I can excuse that. It's your first finals experience. You're playing against Steph, Clay, and Draymond and the Warriors. Like that's difficult. Steph Curry has something to prove in that finals as well, and he proved it. And so this year, you had last year's experience, losing to the Heat in 7 games. That was a disappointment. Now you're back from game 1 to now. This was the expectation. And now you're facing a Maverick squad that does not have the same experience level as you do on all levels. You've played in the finals. You've played through these playoff battles throughout the years. And so for me, Jason Tatum, this is his moment to really shine and to really cement himself as one of those guys. And Jaylen Brown, too. Jaylen Brown deserves a lot of respect as well. I think he's going to have a huge role in this series as well.
I look at this series and I believe that everything kind of the road was paved in the Eastern Conference for the Boston Celtics. I didn't even bring up Giannis. Right? Maybe the Knicks gave him a little bit of a series if they get past Indiana and didn't lose in Game 7 and Brunson's not hurt. Who knows with the Sixers? But it's paved right there. I think Dallas, even though it was an extremely impressive, they made some moves at the deadline with Washington and a couple other players, role players. You got Luka, you got Kyrie. It is amazing how a player can do a total 180. I mean, I recall last year at this time, we're talking about Kyrie, and man, I mean, I said, look, kick him out of the league, man. You got to ban him, talking about the anti-Semitic comments and remarks. And I think where his career was almost derailed is when he chose by his own doing. And you have to respect that when we were dealing with COVID. I mean, he did not want to take the shot. He did not want to be vaccinated. That's his body. That's his right as a human being. But also, he disappeared here and there. He missed another 2-something odd weeks here and there with the Nets. We know what he was able to do with Cleveland, and then in Boston, it didn't work out. And we started to call him a coach killer. But he's now saying all the right things. All that aside, when you watch him play, I mean, he's a Hall of Fame player. I mean, he's an exceptional generational talent, and it's like the right fit right now with Luka. And also, let's go back to something I brought up on BYP a month or so ago, those erroneous reports talking about the offense stalling when Luka was on the floor. Like, where's that anonymous source right now? So I guess the point being is, players change, right? And sometimes you just get on a team that's the right fit for you at the right time. And we're talking about Kyrie, Boston, Porzingis, Boston, right? Those guys had cups of coffee, or Dallas for Porzingis. So many storylines. But how about Kyrie and what he's been able to accomplish this year? And listen, if he carries his team along with Luka and wins another title, that's something.
No, Kyrie, his talent has never been in question. Just watching the way that he handles the rock and the way he finishes, just the angles on just the skill level with both hands, the ability to finish at his size. I mean, one of the best players, period, we've ever seen, offensively gifted players ever, right? And so I think what we're seeing here, and even hearing Kyrie talk to media yesterday, there's a sense of calmness with him. There's definitely a lot of growth. Just speaking to the situation in Boston, and how he's speaking about handling the Boston crowd, which is going to be loud and on him throughout this series. But he handled that right. He's saying, look, I've learned how to better handle this. A lot of it may be anxiety and being young and just handling the moment. Like, it's not that serious. He said the fans are important. I appreciate the relationship that they have with this game, but I have to be centered. I have to focus on my situation and my job and not let it rattle me. And so we're seeing a calm Kyrie. It's great to see these guys grow. You got to understand, these players enter this league at such a young age, and we're literally seeing them grow before our eyes, whether it's social media, the TV. And so I think Kyrie's at a point in his life and career where he's found the perfect role, one of the better second options, maybe the best second option in the league right now, right? And so I think he's found the perfect blend of the right opportunity, the right teammates, the right coaching staff, everything, but also where he's at in his life, and it's showing itself. And so I'm excited to see how he handles this series in Boston, because it's going to be hectic. It's going to be interesting. All the lights are going to be on. The first time a Celtic fan yells something at him, all eyes are going to be on Kyrie and how he responds. That can easily be a story. And so Kyrie, I'm interested to see how he handles that.
Midway through a Thursday edition, Middays with Q. Rich Quinones here. Angel Martinez behind the glass. We're powered by Riptide Media Network, exclusively on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. Jonathan Marshall, kind enough to join us. You guys can chime in as well, 727-858-6650. Steve on Facebook chimes in regarding Hurley. If hired, he'll get a big check, will last a few years, then back to college. I mean, that seems to be the norm here and there. I think anytime anyone always says, man, I absolutely love it here, this is where I want to hang my hat, plant my flag, start the family, this is unbelievable. A couple years later, start to write, hey man, fill in the blank for the amount. But you can't blame somebody, because we do that in media. We're mercenaries, right? I mean, let's be honest.
Listen, we know money talks, Q.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the Lakers. If the Yankees call, if there are certain franchises that call you up, I gotta take it.
You're right.
And for me, Hurley's what's the worst that can happen, right? Okay, if it doesn't work out in the NBA, you have NBA money in the bank, and a top college program is always going to be ready to hire you.
Yes.
Like, you've proven yourself at the college level. You're still young. Either way, you got money and you're going to have a job. So why not take a swing at this Lakers opportunity? This could be honestly, he has the leverage. Like, you guys are in no position as a Lakers franchise to tell me what to do. Yeah. I want to have total control of this situation. I have the proven resume. You guys are pretty much stuck. LeBron is going to be out of here soon. So what are you going to do after that?
Right. Plan B.
And it's important for you guys. There's no head coach that's going to save you. I'm the guy. My resume is Hall of Fame. This is what I want. And if it's me, I'm giving it to them.
Yeah. No, listen, I agree. Bobby D in Summers Point chimes in. Q, great to hear on Facebook. Great to hear you back on the airways, Middays with Q. I'm curious, what's your predictions for the finals? Where's Jonathan leaning? I've got Boston Celtics in 7 with Tatum winning finals MVP. I'm kind of torn with this. Like, Boston hasn't covered in game ones, right? They've come out a little lethargic. I think the line's 6.5. Mm-hmm. I might have dropped. I'd have to double check. I saw with DK and FanDuel had it. But the total was like 214. I think it'll be a little more of a high scoring game tonight. I do like it. I know this is kind of, what do we call, low bearing fruit to say, right? But I believe if Dallas can make this a series, they have to win game one.
Oh yeah.
I think if you can steal the game, you can win game one. Again, you creep a little down in the Boston. Maybe they tighten up. Who knows what happens in game 2? I hate the scheduling. Game 1 should have been on Sunday night. But to Bobby's question and comment, It pains me to say,
Hmm.
I think Boston wins this in 6. I can see the series going in 7. Part of me was actually thinking, when I really started to look at the numbers, first gloss 5.
Mhm.
But I was overlooking the fact that Dallas, you look at some of the series that they had, they're a playoff tested team. They've got a little resolve, not like the Boston Celtics, but it was more because the Celtics sometimes will have those off nights. And if the shot's not falling for Brown and Tatum, I think Dallas can take advantage of it. With that being said, I am going to go with the Celtics, which pains me to say, but I do like them in 6.
Yeah, I thought about Celtics in 5 too, Q, simply off of just the experience and the talent level of the Celtics. But I look, they have Luka and Kai on the other side of the floor. And to me, that's going to give you at least one win, right? And so accounting for the Celtics getting in their own way, that's another loss, right? Settling too much for the jump shot, your shot's just not your night. I'm going to go Celtics in 6. I'm pretty confident that they'll be able to exploit certain situations when it comes to Kyrie and Luka defensively. I think Porzingis will have a huge role. I'm confident in saying Celtics in 6. If I had to pick a Finals MVP, I've wavered between Tatum and Brown. I'm going to go with Jaylen Brown.
Sometimes it's always the Robin, doesn't have to be the Batman.
Right.
And if you look back in the history of the NBA Finals, there have, from the Dennis Johnsons to the Andre Iguodalas of the world, there have been those unsung players that have stepped up. You know, Dennis Johnson went from being MVP in, I think it was 78 with the Seattle Supersonics when they beat Washington. The then Bullets had a horrible series in 79, and Washington was able to beat him in 7. And I believe Wes Unseld was the MVP. So sometimes you get those unsung players, both exceptional players. Let me leave you with this. Well, I got you for a couple more minutes. There's a report coming out. Philadelphia's Inquirer, Keith Pompey, said the Sixers can offer Embiid, or looking to offer Embiid, or they can offer Embiid a 3-year extension worth $193 million beginning July 18th. So in addition to the extension, he would make $106 million over the next 2 seasons, gain a player option for about $60 million for the 2026 season, 2027 season without the extension. So we're talking about a 30-year-old Embiid. We're talking about a league MVP in 2023. He's still in the prime. He'll give you 28 and 12. But we also know at the end of the day, you've got to pay, again, Tyrese Maxey, right? Let's not forget about Maxey. You're talking probably max 200 plus over 5 years. And now the talk of, do you go after LeBron? Do you go after George? Do you go after Butler? Do you go after Ingram? You know where I stand with the Embiid. I thought they should have traded him. I don't think they're ever going to win with Embiid. I think at this point it's a bad fit. They haven't really built around him. And when they built around him and they gave him the players he wanted, they came up small. So where are you at with the Sixers and Embiid right now?
I think the window is clear too. Next 2 years that's the window. As far as winning,
I thought a couple years ago was 2 years. Why do you keep pushing back the goalpost?
We keep pushing it back, right? The window well, they're going to give Joel that money, right? They're going to pay Maxey. They're going to bring in a third guy, whoever that may be, Paul George, Jimmy Butler, whoever. With the age of a PG and a Butler, the age of Embiid, clearly 2 years max. That's that. After those 2 years, I would hate to see where this franchise is at. It's going to get really interesting. That's all I'm going to say.
It's like me turning around every single year saying this is the year Daniel Jones has a breakout season and the Giants fix the offensive line. I just don't see it. The NBA is so funny because you could be a Hall of Fame player. You can have a Hall of Fame talent.
Yeah.
But ultimately it does not equate to championships. See, Dan Marino, you can objectively, subjectively, you can argue top 5 quarterback of all time. One of the great throwers of the football, the yards, the numbers, the stats. Everyone loved Marino. Got to a Super Bowl his second year, threw for 4,000 yards in 85, lost to the 49ers in 85, threw for 4,000 yards in 84, lost to the 49ers in 85. They got waxed 38-16. Dan, you're going to get back. You're going to get back. Never went back to the Super Bowl. Yeah. But it doesn't diminish his career as an all-time great. But he's a quarterback. And as I mentioned during yesterday's show on Midday with the Q, we measure quarterbacks by what? We tag them with wins and losses and rings and championships.
Yeah.
It's a little different now in the NBA. But does Embiid want to put his name, at the end of the day, etched as an all-time great player, as an all-time great center? I had someone the other day go back and forth with me, and they had, and I want to get to this in a second, but they were talking about all-time greats. But my point being with Embiid, can be an all-time great,
Yeah.
but never win a championship.
Right.
And we'll have that little asterisk. And it's tough because it almost reminds me of, Patrick Ewing was a great player. He was a great college player. He was an exceptional all-time great pro, one of the greatest Knicks of all time. And he never won a championship.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's a situation where physically his body hasn't lived up to what it's needed to be over the years, right? With the injuries. And at this point, you got to account for there will be an injury that Joel has to deal with each and every year. Unfortunately, it's been during the playoffs for sure. And so with Embiid, at this point in his career, he has to realize, look, these next 2-3 years, that is it. And for this franchise, and these next handful of years, if you don't win that championship or even make a NBA Finals series, it's going to be tough. It's going to be an interesting situation. See how they pivot from that Embiid era to the next, because you're putting in a lot of money in this situation. And at that point in 2 years, what trade value does an Embiid have, right? And so in a few years, it could be some spooky conversations for this front office to have.
So I was going back and forth with a couple of people on social because they were talking about Steph Curry as a top 10 all-time player. And my argument right away was, hold on a second. Half that list could be centers.
Right.
Okay. So
right.
If you go, you go Shaq, you go Kareem, you go Wilt, you go Bill Russell, you want to throw Walton, God rest his soul. Even if you want to stick him on the outside looking in, there's 4 or 5 I just mentioned. Then you can throw in the likes of a David Robinson, a Barkley, a Kobe, a Michael, a Magic, a Bird.
Yeah.
Am I missing someone? A LeBron James,
Elijah
a Jerry
Wine.
West. A who?
Elijah Wine.
So
Tim Duncan.
Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
Now we're talking. I mean, I don't even have Curry as top 20. If you want to say one of the all-time great shooters, right? Shooting guard, whatever, all-time great three-point shooters. I have no problem sticking him in there with Bird and Magic and some of the, Bird and Reggie Miller and some of the all-time greats from that regard, right? But absolutely no way. No way.
A top 10 is always tough, right? Because there's never a set criteria, right? Like, is it impact on the game? Is it transcendent talent? Is it rings? Is it all those things combined? And so off the top 5 is already going to be MJ, LeBron, Bird, Magic, Kareem, Russell, Wilt. Like that's. And so there's only a few spots left. So it's like, how are we? That's tough because there's been a lot of guys in this year.
But what's the caveat here? What are the parameters? Are we talking, after 1985? Are we talking after 1990? Are we dismissing the 70s?
Right.
Where I can still give you Walt and Clyde and Wes Unseld and like I said, Jerry West and Gail Goodrich. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on.
I think Dr. J doesn't give enough respect.
There you go, Dr. J.
You know what I mean? So I think it's a top 10, a definitive top 10. I think the top 5 is usually going to be the same. Your order may differ, but the top 5.
So who's your top 5? Who's your top 5? And I don't care about the order. It's bar talk right now. Who's your order? I mean, who's your top 5?
It's going to be Mike. It's going to be LeBron. It's going to be Magic. It's going to be Kareem, and it's going to be Bird.
I was about to get on you if you know. So, okay, so you have Kareem over Wilt.
Yes.
And over Bill.
Resume. I think Kareem has the best basketball resume ever.
Who is the more dominant center, though? It was Wilt Chamberlain. They changed.
Who was the more dominant center?
Yeah.
But
now, who is the best winner? Bill Russell.
There we go. But who put it all together, though? As far as talent, basketball skill, dominance, and winning, who put it together perfectly on all levels of the game, high school, college, and pro?
Well, that's the other thing. You're pushing back the goalpost a little bit. And plus, listen, Kareem, when he won in the 70s, early 70s, when he was a Wall Cinder with the Bucks, that's when he really started to develop what we kind of knew about the skyhook, which was unguardable. But man, if you stuck Wilt Chamberlain in today's NBA, how do you stop him?
So who's you? I had Mike, LeBron, Magic, Bird, Kareem. Who's your 5?
So I always thought Wilt Chamberlain was one of the most dominant centers. And again, you and I had to go back and watch film, right?
Right.
But obviously, you start the conversation. I think Larry Bird was just unbelievable. Magic Johnson, the court vision. Magic Johnson wasn't a very good shooter,
No.
defense here and there, but the court vision. He also got helped out by having pretty much wall-to-wall Hall of Famers,
Right.
i.e. Larry Bird, right? Let's be
Yeah.
honest. McHale,
Yeah.
Parrish had a great bench, but Bird, Magic, Jordan, LeBron, and then I have to throw a center in there just because,
Yeah.
man, I still think that Wilt is without a doubt the most dominant player the league has ever seen. And if you want to say Shaq too,
Yeah.
but Wilt changed his game when they needed him to be more of a distributor in the mid 70s with the Lakers when they went on that 33-game winning streak. So he got those guys involved a little more. But how do you not bring up, Jerry West? How do you not bring up Monroe or Frazier? How do you not bring up Dr. J or Charles Barkley or Shaq or Malone? That's what I'm like. I feel as though the younger NBA talking heads totally forget about the 70s and the 80s. And think about this. We wanted the next. So you brought this up and you brought it up brilliantly. When Jordan was Jordan and then Michael Jordan retired, we were waiting for the next Jordan. So the evolution, if you will, right? It was almost like, okay, you had the McGrady's, the AIs, to the Kobe's, to the LeBrons, and then, we're waiting for that next. It's never going to happen, man. So, yeah, I mean, Curry, to me, honestly, I don't even have him top 20.
He would be in my top 20. I would have to actually write it out.
That's what I'm saying. You got to jot it down.
Because thinking about it, I think Tim Duncan's in my top 10. And if you look at his accomplishments, the rings, the awards, all like defensively, offensively, how can you argue? I mean, I think he has a strong case to be a top 10 player of all time.
Yeah. It's a fascinating, like I said, it's good sport, good bar talk, right?
Yeah. There's never going to be like a definitive list that everybody agrees on.
No, and that's the fun. But I think sometimes when we just totally gloss over certain players, like, wait a second, what about this guy? What about that guy? Look, we knew what he was with Davidson. We knew he was a scorer. I told you, I remember, I was like, I want the Knicks to draft this kid. I mean,
almost had him too.
Almost had him, right? But it doesn't work out like that. So, all right. So you'll be covering the finals. You'll be out there.
I'll be out there every game, traveling to Dallas. I'm excited.
All right. You're going to get some short ribs out there or what?
Living a good life. I'm going to get some good bar. I used to live out in Texas, so I definitely miss the food out there. I'm going to get some good stuff.
All right. Just stay hydrated on the flights, will you?
Oh, yeah. I got you.
Hey, we'll do it next week. I appreciate a couple moments, pal.
All right, Q.
All right. Be well. There you have it. Jonathan Marshall, WMUR, good stuff, anchor reporter. Listen, like I said, it's good fodder, good barroom talk, if you will, when it comes to top 10. 12:47, couple minutes to play. We'll take you up to 1 o'clock straight up. Last time out.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, grown-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have any body to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
That's really funny.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I gotta tell you, I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too, but I'm glad we are.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and life experiences come together through conversation, and it feels good.
Wow, your story is so...
Interesting?
Yeah.
When people actually sit down, talk, and listen to one another, they can break down boundaries and connect as human beings. At lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep, you can listen to amazing, life-changing conversations and find simple tools to start a conversation of your own.
I know one thing. This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together by having the courage to start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s. Why should saving for retirement be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments, start skateboarding.
Whoa!
Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. With aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a 3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get personalized recommendations based on your input that are easy to understand and work with your lifestyle. It's quick, easy, and free. Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back.
Gnarly move, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie.
So wherever you are in your retirement savings journey, head to aceyourretirement.org and start chatting with Avo today. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, a couple of minutes to play with before we hit 1 o'clock. We'll take you up to 1 as always. Got to mention that portion of the show from our good friends over at Kennedy Marketing Events Public Relations, driving connections, fueling experiences, inspiring authentic engagement, uncompromising focus on your needs and goals. That's what they create. General customer experience that deliver action-driven results and forge relationships naturally and honestly. Check them out online, kennedyideas.com. And Mickey says hello and hell. 727-858-6650. If you guys want to chime in on the text message board. I saw this Jeffrey Lurie might be willing to sell a minority stake in the Philadelphia Eagles. Hey, listen, he's, Jeffrey Lurie, everyone knows the background, Hollywood guy, right? All about the filmmaking. And years ago decided, hey, we got to set the gold standard here and there, and nothing less is going to be acceptable. And he's made a boatload. I mean, look how much that franchise is worth right now. But we've seen this in the NFL. Look, the money is utterly ridiculous. When I'll see if I can pull it up. I don't know if Angel, you can pull it up, but before we got out of here, when he bought this team, remember there was talk years ago that they were trying to move the Eagles to either Phoenix, Arizona. There was just this back and forth. There was this rumor, okay, what's going to go on with Leonard Toast? Are we going to have to move the team? So right now, let's just say go back to 2020. So a couple of years ago, he was ranked number 319 on Forbes 400 list of richest people in America. Right now, their worth, the Philadelphia Eagles' worth is, it's got to be utterly ridiculous, right? About 5'9"? Okay, see, I just pulled up as of 2023, 5.8. So look, we just gave them an extra $1 billion. Not bad for, a day's work. But point being, these owners, they're so smart. When they purchase this team, they need money to make money. We all know that. That's how it works in the world with people with money. And he's done a hell of a job, man. He's done a hell of a job. If you think about what they were doing, the runs with Andy Reid and getting to the 4 straight NFC championships and then finally getting over the hump and beating the Falcons in the NFC championship and then ultimately losing to New England, they've always had to sustain the level of success. And listen, this is from someone that, if you ask me right now, the team you hate the most, despise the most, Philadelphia Eagles, as you know, but the level of success and what they've been able to do for the community over the last 20, 25 plus years, Jeffrey Lurie and his wife, it's really commendable. And they always put a winning product out on the field. And you can't say, listen, as much as we sit there and say, well, look what Jerry Jones is doing in the Dallas Cowboys and what are they worth? Well, what have they won? They haven't won anything since 95. Like, what have they won? So that's not a bad profit. Yeah, Mark Cuban did the same thing with the Dallas Mavericks because he has his hand in other ventures that he knows are going to make him a substantial amount of money, in addition to what he was able to do with the Dallas Mavericks and Shark Tank. And I think the Mavericks will make it a series, but I do believe the Boston Celtics, they win it in 6. Do I want to see a 7-game series? Yeah, why not? And as far as the Stanley Cup Finals, I just think the Florida Panthers, down your neck in the wood for you guys down there, Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game, you and Pete and the gang, the Florida, they're too deep, man. They're too deep, and their goaltending is so hot right now. So I think the Florida Panthers will win the Stanley Cup, and I like the Boston Celtics to win the NBA Finals in 6 games. And I mentioned the odds and the line right now. So it's still sat at 6.5. It's settled in. Total is 215. Game 1 tonight. And then we don't get game 2 until Sunday. All right, quickly. Baseball yesterday, 2-1 with the plays and the picks. Phils and the Yankees did me good. Atlanta did not help me out yesterday, so I'm not going to ride Atlanta, even though they're starting to set with the Nationals. I do like the Dodgers tonight, minus 195 on the money line, even though Bueller has struggled a little bit. I'm not a fan of Falter. He gives up way too many runs, so give me the Dodgers. I got to keep riding the Yankees. I'll lay that 140 to win back 100. Stroman's on the mound for the Yankees, so you got the Dodgers, you got the Yankees, and then the final game, believe it or not, I am actually calling for the White Sox to get the win tonight over the Boston Red Sox. The White Sox are a historically bad team, but sometimes when you start a series against a really good team, and this is a great way for the Chicago White Sox to end a horrible losing streak. I think it's 13 or 14 games. I told you guys this, do not start riding teams when they're in the midst of a streak, whether it's winning or losing, but I'm going to give you an upset, which is probably going to blow up in my face, Angel, but I like the White Sox tonight as well. So the White Sox, the Dodgers, and the Yankees. Who do you like in the NBA Finals? Yeah. Well, I like when we see you, the incredible shrinking man, when we just get that little square and it just, boop. There you go. 1994. That's a hell of a loan. 185 million.
That is. You got to think, man, that's pretty damn amazing to do something like that and turn into obviously a measure net profit for yourself. That's pretty good. I like Boston. I think Boston take care of business. And at first I thought it was 5 games possibly, but the way Dallas is playing, I think it will go 7 games. It's going to be extremely tough. The pace will be as I'm right here, Mickey. Right here, even though I'm going to say,
I mean, the guy's killing me with the spell check. I mean,
yeah.
Just,
Anyways, yeah, I think with the way it's going down, you got to think it's going to be going a distance. It's going 7 games, but the way Ron and I talked about it during Martinez Company was the same way that I think how the pace is set tonight, how this bench is going to come off for Boston is going to determine how the rest of the series will end up going.
All right. Fair enough. All right. So you like the Celtics. You like the series in 7. I'll take the Celtics in 6. And I'm sure you like the Florida Panthers, which I think is going to be a snooze fest of a Stanley Cup Finals. Florida over Edmonton. Florida's better.
I mean, it could be the time for the Canadians to end up winning it. It'll be tough. I think the Panthers are just the colder team. You can't say really hungry because they're on the ice, but they're the colder team to be able to take it. I think the Panthers want to do it, and if they really look at it right now, their farm league, the ECHL, Florida Everblades. I mean, they won their game 3, so they're up 2-1 now. They're coming back home, and they can finish it out at Hertz Arena. So I think we will see a Southeast Florida win. Southwest, Southeast combo, because obviously they play in Fort Myers as far as the Florida Everblades, and then the Florida Panthers over there at the Heat Arena.
All right, there you have it. All right, so start wrapping up. Good stuff from Jonathan Marshall. Don't forget, Monday to Friday, you got the Pete Sheppard Show with Pete Sheppard, 7 to 10. You got Martinez Company, 10 to 12. I know we'll have a little changing, if you will, in scheduling for next week for some vacations here and there. Tomorrow, busy Friday as well. Even if we are not on 102.9 FM The Game, Steve Gardner is going to join us. We'll talk some baseball with him, but we'll put that on the YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q. As always, we're powered by our good friends over at Riptide Media Network, exclusively on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. You guys have to tell your friends, share the link, but more importantly, download the app, Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. We are Florida's fastest growing streaming sports service in the Southwest as well. And of course, part of the Broad Street South. So as always, appreciate Jonathan Marshall, Angel Martinez behind the glass, keeping us on the air. Good stuff with the tweets and the Facebook comments. I'll continue to reply to you guys. We'll get this uploaded on Rich Q on Q, as well as the Broad Street South YouTube channel and on X. As always, everyone have a wonderful Sports Thursday. Enjoy your baseball games. You got the plays as well. Put a little coin in the pocket. We will do it again tomorrow. As always, I'm Rich Quinones. Hasta luego, buen día.